Hello once again. It's so good to see that you are all ready to learn more about ancient Greece. Today we are going to learn all about the wars between the Greek city-states and the Persian Empire. You already know a little bit about the Persians, don't you? Yes, you do. Remember the large empire that spread from India to Egypt? Remember the royal road? Remember the emperor and his royal governor, satrap? Of course you do. That is the same Persian Empire that fought against the Greeks. Cool. Now, if you remember from our last conversation, the Spartans were the best fighters of all the Greeks. They developed an awesome method of fighting that the next video will tell you all about.
Around the 8th century BC, the Peloponnesus region in southern Greece was invaded by soldiers from the north. These invaders established a new city, Sparta, and their neighbors soon came to fear them. Sparta's warriors were so fierce, the city didn't need walls for protection. Other nations wanted Peloponnesus, a fertile valley sheltered by mountains. The threat of invasion from the Persian Empire and others was constant. Forever under the cloud of war, Sparta was an armed camp. Soldiers were the ruling class. At birth, a boy's strength and health were assessed. Those deemed weak were abandoned in the mountains. Those judged fit were taken from their mothers at age 7 to begin military training. At 20, he was made a soldier and joined a platoon. At 30, he could marry, as long as he remained devoted to affairs of state and the art of war. He could not farm or trade. These jobs were left to the slave class, known as helots, and lesser citizens, called freemen. At 60, a soldier finally retired, and a younger man took his place in the platoon. Sparta's single-minded devotion to war produced an army that could outdrill, outmarch, and outfight anyone. By the 6th century BC, Sparta was the dominant city in Greece on the strength of its brute force alone. Spartans fought in small, mobile platoons of fewer than 24 men. In battle, a Spartan warrior armored his torso with a bronze breastplate called a cuirass. His shins were also guarded by bronze. Strapped to his chest was an iron sword with a curved blade. A crested bronze helmet that exposed only his eyes protected his head. As an army, the Spartans used a new fighting strategy called a phalanx. Their phalanx was a massive formation of soldiers protected with shields. The right side of each man was protected by the shield of the man to his left. Sparta produced soldiers who could endure any hardship and confront death without fear. The term Spartan became synonymous with self-discipline and self-restraint. But centuries of fighting took their toll on Sparta. Costly wars with Persia, Athens, and Thebes eventually weakened the city. In the 4th century BC, Philip II of Macedon, father to Alexander the Great, conquered the region as part of his campaign to become master of Greece. By the 2nd century BC, Sparta was nothing more than a Roman province.
So as you just saw on the video, it was the development of the phalanx that made the Spartans such a formidable fighting force. So what do we already know about Persia? The Hellespont was the small piece of water that separated continental Europe from Asia. It is in modern-day Istanbul. It ensured that any Persian invasion of Greece would have to come from the sea and not overland. This was very important.
On the narrow plain of Marathon in eastern Greece, a battle rages that will alter the course of Western civilization. On one side, the army of the Persian Empire, the most powerful fighting force in the world. On the other side, the army of Athens, half its size, led by the famed Greek general Miltiades. This is a battle of military brilliance in the face of overwhelming odds. A battle for the future of Greece and for the supremacy of the ancient world. Two civilizations are about to collide. East meets West on the plains of Marathon. Death comes swiftly. For 6 days, a brutal attack by a faceless invader stains the soil red. Those not butchered are enslaved. The aggressors are the heavy infantry of the mighty Persian Empire. They are called immortals. The victims are residents of the island of Euboea in the Greek city of Eretria. 600 Persian warships had set sail on the Aegean Sea and swallowed every Greek island in their path. But Euboea is not
down to Athens, Corinth, Sparta, all those states whose names pop up in history. Each city-state was a self-contained society, had its own lands, its own army.
But aboard his warship, the Persian commander Datis cares about only one of these city-states, Athens. He's so confident he'll be able to destroy this historic city. The only question in his mind is exactly how he'll destroy it.
he can either attack Athens directly from the sea, is one possibility. This is a bit difficult. Athens is walled, and an amphibious assault from the sea against opposition is pretty iffy business. So he decides not to attack Athens head-on, rather to pick a spot about 25 miles away from the city along his line of route, and to land there, and figured one of two things would happen.
Either the Greek army responds and comes out to meet him, or he would land, assemble his army, and simply march on to Athens from the ground. So given the choice between the land campaign or an amphibious landing of Athens itself, he chooses the land campaign.
Datis directs his fleet of 600 ships about 26 miles away from Athens, at Marathon. He moors his ships in Marathon Bay and disembarks on the skinniest beach. The Persians then make camp on the northeast side of the plain, next to the Great Marsh.
The Persian army is about to slam into Athens like a Category 5 hurricane. The Athenians know surrender isn't an option, but they're divided on how to prepare. Should they hunker down behind the city walls or march out to meet the Persians in battle?
Some in Athens believe that an open field battle against the Persians is suicide. But one Athenian disagrees. His name is Miltiades, and he has a personal history with the Persians.
Miltiades is a very interesting character. He comes from a prominent family in Athens, and when he's about 35, he takes over a Greek colony in Ionia, on the edge of the Persian Empire. He rules there as a tyrant. This makes him very unpopular in Athens.
In the late 6th century BC, Miltiades' home on the Hellespont Peninsula is engulfed by the expanding Persian Empire. He's forced into military service. Now wielding a Persian sword, he must fight along his conquerors. The Persians soon spread north, cross the Danube River, and invade Scythia, modern-day Eastern Europe and Asia.
Miltiades was in charge of guarding the bridges across the Danube over which the Persian army had come in order to go into Scythia and prosecute the campaign.
Finally, after 3 long years in Scythia, Miltiades decided he'd had enough.
Miltiades had never been a big fan of the Persians, and he tried to get other Greek generals to agree that what we ought to do is burn the bridges behind Darius and his army and let them die of starvation or be killed by the Scythians. Other Greeks would not go along with it, but it was Miltiades' idea, and it was picked up by Persian intelligence. So Persian intelligence were not very happy with Miltiades, as you might expect.
Miltiades flees to Athens, but he's not welcome there either. The people of Athens still remember Miltiades as a tyrant and lock him up at the first chance they get.
3 years after his arrival in Athens, Miltiades faces the death sentence for tyranny, but he's got an ace in the hole. He knows the Persian game.
And the Persians are on their way, looking to destroy Athens.
The Athenians not only spare Miltiades' life, they make him a general. But Miltiades has to wonder which fate is worse, execution or being hacked to little bitty bits by the Persian warriors.
Miltiades chooses to face the Persian blade, and rather than hide behind the walls of Athens, he wants to meet the Persians on the battlefield.
But the final decision on whether to fight is not his to make. Athenian democracy extends to the army too. So when an argument erupts over what to do at Marathon, the Council of 10 Generals must decide what to do. Attack now, or retreat and try to get help from other Greek city-states.
The vote is 5-5. The tie-breaking vote